When we have a past experience that is upsetting to us, that emotional experience stays in our nervous system and we carry it forward. Oftentimes we think we've let go of something, we think we've accepted it and dealt with it and put it to rest. We might not even remember it that well. But so often when we actually take the time to go back to it, to focus our attention back on it, we find that there are clues that show us that that is some unfinished business that we carry around with us in our body, in our subconscious mind. We just don't pay attention to it normally, but that doesn't mean it's not there. As we focus on one of these specific memories and we describe in detail some small portion of this memory that actually targets those feelings and those details that we experienced at that time, we are provoking a reaction in our nervous system. We are recreating a situation that provokes our fight or flight reaction, just the way it did at the time of that intense moment back then. It doesn't matter how far back it was, it can still be just as much alive in your system. It might have happened 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. It doesn't matter. Anyway, we provoke it. We want to provoke it a little bit as we describe what happened in that moment for up to a couple of minutes, 3 at the most. We really want to keep it to a narrow segment of a memory. And as we describe what was going on in that moment, we are tapping through a variety of meridian points that I'll explain in a moment. And as we're doing so, 2 things are happening. We're triggering a little bit of the fight or flight reaction by focusing on the memory and describing it. And at the same time, we're disabling the fight or flight reaction by tapping the acupressure points. And that is inducing a state of calm, and it's communicating to our nervous system that everything is okay. This is just happens to be what it does. I can't explain exactly why. There's different theories on this, but it's subtle, but it works. So that's the basic understanding. You're disabling your fight or flight reaction while focusing on the thing that in the past has actually provoked that reaction. And by doing that, your nervous system begins to calm down and your mind begins to let go, literally dissolve or reconsolidate the memory so that it seems altered, it seems neutralized, it becomes very distant, very faded, and it no longer evokes any emotion. Our goal is always to get it to a 0, which means neutral, peaceful, no emotion, no stress reaction to that memory. I'm going to explain the points first, then I'll go through the sequence of how you put it all together. The first point we call side of hand. Some people refer to it as the karate chop point. Just here at the end of this line on the palm of the hand, on the edge of the hand, is where you want to hit. So hitting the whole side of the hand with the fingers or like this is the way to go. And you don't have to hit yourself very hard. It's just gentle but firm tapping. We will tap here in the beginning as we say a phrase, sort of an opening setup phrase that we'll repeat at least twice. And then we will go through the sequence of points starting at the top of the head. This point, if you follow the tips of your ears to the top of your head, it's the back part of the crown, directly above the ear tips. Now you can use more than 2 fingers on some of these points, but you don't want to use 1 finger because that gives more likelihood of missing the spot. 2 is a good rule of thumb, so to speak, for tapping, and some you can use all of them, like at the crown, if it's easier for you. We tap just long enough to say a phrase or a few words to describe our feeling. And then we tap the beginning of the eyebrow. It's not between the eyebrows. It's not the third eye point as in yoga. It is on the eyebrow, right at the beginning of the eyebrow. It doesn't matter which side you do, and you do not have to do both, but you can if you like. One does the job just fine, just the same. So we're tapping here, beginning of the eyebrow, corner of the eye. This point is just on the back edge of this bone here, behind the eye and in front of the temple. There's a little divot here, a little indentation in this bone, and that's where you want to tap. Under the eye, at the top of the cheekbone, centered right under the eye, under the nose. The indentation here of the chin. The next point we call the collarbone point. In Chinese medicine it's called K27. It's a kidney point. These points are just to the side of the sternum and just below the actual collarbone. So the biggest mistake people make, and this is a very common mistake, is people go too far over to the side. I'm going to keep it pretty central here, just to the side of the sternum. And if you forget this point, or you're not sure, just take all your fingers and tap around this area right here. The next point is under the arm. It's about a hand's width under the armpit, just below where my hand is, under my armpit, right on the rib cage. For a woman, it's where the bra strap would be, on the rib cage. And that constitutes one round of tapping. It's okay to do more than one round of tapping, but in most cases we just do one. Take a deep breath, refocus on whatever was the memory or the focal point of your round of tapping, and reevaluate the intensity of it. So you want to evaluate how intense it is before and after doing a round of tapping. Before you pause and you reassess, and if there's still something there, still some feeling, or it might even get stronger at first because you're focusing on it, you're describing it, and it might feel actually a little bit upsetting, and the intensity might increase at first. So you just see where it's at, do another round of tapping. That number almost always begins to subside, and you can work it through as many times as you need to get it down as close to zero as you possibly can. The next thing I'd like to talk about is phrasing. The words in this technique are extremely important. This is a very verbal technique. We don't just, encounter some stress or some upset feeling and just tap without words. We can, but your results are going to be minimal at best, which is why this technique is so easily misunderstood. Because if you were to just casually start tapping these points, it's unlikely that you would notice anything in particular. It might feel relaxing, but beyond that, it's going to be a very vague outcome. When you're using your words to focus your mind on something very specific, you bring a lot of power to what this technique can do for you, and that is really the secret of it. It's not the words themselves, meaning that it's not like there's magic words to use. People always get hung up on wanting to use the right words, using a script, to give them the right words to say to unlock their problem. That's really missing the point of tapping. Tapping is about getting focused authentically on your particular experience from your past or present, whatever the case is, and using the words to describe your experience It's not using somebody else's words that they used for their experience. It's you choosing the words that describe yours. So anytime I offer an example, or you see someone else doing an example on a video, just know that your own words are usually the best ones to use. When we begin here on this setup phrase on the side of the hand, there's variations of this phrase, but the basic phrase is, I'm going to use an example here of, let's say I just had a stressful experience at work with my boss, and I feel tension in my chest, my heart rate feels like it's up, I feel tension in my shoulders, and I feel irritable, and I'm trying to deal with that. This is an example where I'm not going into my past, I'm just dealing with the present situation just for demonstration's sake. I'm tapping on the side of the hand, and I say something like this. Even though I have this feeling of tension in my chest, and I feel agitated after talking to my boss, I deeply and completely accept myself. And we repeat it. Even though I feel tense and agitated, and I feel the stress in my chest and shoulders because I just had this run-in with my boss, I deeply and completely accept myself. Now you go to the top of the head, and these are what we call reminder phrases, focused primarily on the negative experience, negative emotion, sensation, whatever the case is. It's not about saying positive affirmations, just stating the negative. Tension in my chest. Irritated with my boss. That was such an upsetting conversation. I got this stress in my shoulders. Tension in my chest. Agitated. Agitated. Irritated with my boss. Tension in my chest. And take a deep breath. Pause there. Take a moment to reflect on the feelings. Pay attention to the places that you felt stress before. You want to look for any change. Now, I might still feel some irritation. I might still feel stress. But if I slow down and I really pay attention to how much do I feel that? Do I feel it in my shoulders like I did before? Do I feel it in my chest the same as I did before? Chances are it's going to feel different. I didn't include this, but rating with a number before and after is a very important thing to do. So let's say that in the beginning I had rated my level of tension here as a 6 out of 10 intensity. I reevaluate when I'm done tapping. Feels now like maybe it's a 3 level of tension, and I don't feel it as much in my shoulders, I just feel it in my chest. So in that case, you would probably want to do this at least one more time, maybe more, and go through it again, this time focusing in specifically on the feeling that you have right here in the chest. And again, use your words to describe that, just like I did before. Be specific. Go through it, take a deep breath, check it out again. Is it any different? It's probably changed again. And that's how we do it. There's very often many layers, or at least a few layers, of emotions, what we call different aspects. They could include body sensations, they could include thoughts in our mind about the interaction we just had, interpretations of what happened that are sticking with us, where, my boss has it out for me, feelings of worry, of persecution, of anger, whatever they are. Those are all aspects, and we can include any of those things in our wording as we're tapping. Being thorough and being specific are extremely important if you want to have good results with your tapping. So that's just a quick overview of the points and the phrasing of your tapping process. The next thing I'd like to explain to you is the difference between global tapping and specific tapping. Or in other words, vague, broad sort of wording to tap about something versus getting very specific about a specific event. Getting specific is what we call bottom-up tapping, meaning we're going to the source material, the original programming, the past experiences that happened usually within the first 20 to 25 years of your life, the formative period of your life. Tapping through those experiences specifically is the best way to undo your current patterns in your life in the most easy and effortless way, as compared to just trying to power through your issues and your blocks and your fears by just sheer act of will, which is both painful, slow, and far less effective. Going back to the source, tapping about those old memories, dissolving those old memories, is a way to eventually collapse the entire issue and allow your strengths and your natural skills and your natural wisdom and your knowledge to all come to the front, where it's no longer blocked by your old program, by your old fears and experiences. That's called bottom-up. Top-down approach is the more vague, what we sometimes call tabletop. It's tapping about the general issue. It is much less effective. If I was just tapping, like the example I just gave, is more of a top-down approach because I'm tapping about something that just happened. Now, does that mean that it won't work? No, it most probably will have a good effect, and therefore it is very practical and useful. But if you want to completely eliminate your reaction to bosses and authority figures who have a certain attitude, like your current boss, because it keeps showing up in your life, if you want to undo that, you're going to have to go back and work on your memories that you're holding about your authoritarian father, or your authoritarian mother, or the teacher in school who was the thorn in your side that embarrassed you in front of the class. Those are the source material things, memories, that really hold this pattern for you. And that's really where you need to go if you want to change it for good. So these are two different, related, but different ways to approach an issue. Top down and bottom up. That's a lot. That gives you plenty to practice for now, but please come back to the next video where we will go further, give you some more concrete examples of ways to use this, and give you some very specific instruction for working through some of your own stuff on your own, and actually seeing some good changes for yourself. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.